What's up, geeks and gamers? It's Odin, and today we're going to be breaking down the box office for this past weekend, but also talking a little bit about Captain Marvel, because we are now officially less than, 4 days away from the Captain Marvel release, from those Thursday night previews that are going to tell us just a little bit, just a taste of how actually good or bad this movie is going to do at the box office. I've told my guys on my channel this. There are two numbers that I'm looking for when it comes to the Captain Marvel box office numbers. One of them is how well it does from week 1 to week 2, so basically what kind of percentage drop off we see from week 1 to week 2, looking at the United States domestic market totals. And the second number I'm looking to, opening weekend in China. And we're going to talk about both of those numbers after, of course, I do the roundup of all of the movies going on around the world that have been released over the past week, but also some movies that I know many people on this channel are looking forward to finding out what the updates are. So, as you can see, this is indeed the estimates going on to this for this current week. How to Train Your Dragon is actually still doing very, very strong with a weekend gross of $30 million. Remember that all of these numbers that you see up here are the domestic totals. What that means is United States and Canada. This does not include other foreign markets. But this is still very good because this is a 45.4% drop. That's a very, very good percentage drop from week 1 and week 2, especially since this movie already overperformed what many people speculated it was going to be doing last week. One of the many reasons why you cannot always take pre-sales or any other figures to be able to estimate, how much a movie is going to make before any actual numbers are officially released. This is going to become into huge factor. It's going to be a huge factor, and it's going to come into play when we talk about those Captain Marvel numbers. However, How to Train Your Dragon still very much outperforming everything that people thought. Very low drop from week 1 to week 2. Added 27 theaters actually between the two, and overall this film is making bank at the box office, not just here in the United States, but also around the world, and we'll get into those numbers in a second. But coming in at number 2, one of the new movies coming out this week is Tyler Perry's A Madea Family Funeral. This is the reason why many people thought that, Alita Battle Angel maybe had a good chance to try and, boost up from last week, because last week it had just a gigantic drop, which people speculated it probably would, since How to Train Your Dragon was coming out, and a lot of people were going to go see that, take their families to see that. But Alita Battle Angel had a chance this weekend with a weaker new release with Tyler Perry, and also with Greta, as you see listed down in fourth place, or rather in 8th place, to be able to come out and make a splash. Unfortunately, just in the United States, it's not really doing as great as it possibly could. 43.3% drop from last week, so it is now Alita Battle Angel that is now in its 3rd week. It went out of 706 theaters. I guarantee you that you're going to see a much larger drop. I would not be surprised if it drops out of another 1,000 theaters for next weekend, so you might not actually get a chance to see this movie come next weekend. So anyone that's trying to say, I'm going to see Alita Battle Angel on March 8th, it might not actually be available just because it's not performing well. It's not going to be because of any conspiracy theory. Again, we've talked about that. I made a video on this channel yesterday dealing with how that's very much a conspiracy theory. There is no data to back that up. That is just how theaters work, not just in the United States, but around the world. When you have screens, when you have theaters with multiple screens, you're going to have multiple movies at that theater. However, the pre-sales, what you can actually buy before the Tuesday or Wednesday before that week, is always going to be limited to brand new releases or releases that already made contracts with theaters to have pre-sales extended out over extended period of time. That's why when I go to Fandango, the two movies that I can buy right now at this point, even at my 20-screen megaplex, are Captain Marvel and Medea's Family Funeral. And that makes sense to me because full week schedules never get released before that time. Never happens. So if you're in another country right now, telling you right now, that's exactly what's going on. If your theater, though, only has 1 or 2 screens, meaning 1 or 2 auditoriums where people can actually see a movie, well, then very likely next weekend, you're right, you're only going to be able to see Captain Marvel. But the reason why is because their mindset is it's a brand new movie, it's a Marvel movie, and therefore it's going to make money. Now, we might be saying that it's not going to make nearly as much as people say that it is, but we honestly also ourselves don't really know how much it's going to make overall. That being said, Alita Battle Angel is still doing okay, made another $7 million this weekend in the United States, but it also is still making money overseas as well. So let's break down some of these numbers. So How to Train Your Dragon 3, doing very well, $375.3 million in its first 2 weeks. That means that this film is well on pace to ending probably around $600 or $700 million. So it's definitely going to make a pretty nice gross for being the last film in a franchise. At least that's what we've been told to this point. Please, God, don't let the success of this film try and lead to some kind of, we're going to do a Toy Story 4 and release a movie that really shouldn't have to be releasing at this point. But we'll see actually what happens with that. Tyler Perry, click the long button there. That's what happens when you go into infinity mode. But anyway, when you go into Medea's Family Funeral, this is a movie that's, I don't understand why people are still seeing these movies. Obviously, this is being made for a very specific market, and obviously this market is still showing up for it. $27 million is nothing to snuff at for an opening weekend, coming in right behind How to Train Your Dragon 3. $27 million probably was made for, well under $100 million, I would imagine. So this film is probably going to end up breaking even. I wouldn't be surprised if this film was made for like 10, 15 million tops. And if that is the case, then this film will probably end up making its money back. But Tyler Perry continues to make the same movie over and over again. But as soon as, basically as long as audiences continue to show up for it, they're going to continue to have it. The bigger story here, I know that a lot of people are worrying about this movie, is the fact that Alita Battle Angel, as of today, has made $350 million worldwide. Now, some people might be saying, oh, doesn't that mean that it's broken even? Doesn't that mean it's making profit? Not exactly. Remember that the production budget is only part of the story. You have to take half the production budget and then add that to the production budget in order to get the total cost, because that's about how much they spend on marketing, meaning that this film overall, taking also into account that the worldwide total only accounts for, the studio only gets about 60% of that total, means that in order for Alita to break even at the box office, it needs to make about $430 million worldwide. So it's about, $70-80 million away from doing that. Is it possible? Does it have enough steam to get to that point? Maybe. At this point, it's a lot less certain as it was maybe a couple weeks ago. The domestic market looks like it's probably going to end up failing or end up stopping around 80, 85, maybe tops $90 million in the United States. Foreign market is probably going to be well over $300 million, which is a very good thing. But once again, it does need to make $430 million just to break even. Anything it makes after $430 million, that would be net profit. So we shall see exactly what happens with Alita Battle Angel, but seriously, still go support this movie. Go see this movie. If the movie is still playing where you live, come March 7th, come March 8th, go see that movie. Show them that this is the kind of characters that we want to support. We want to support strong characters, not just people pushing political agendas. And again, you might not have this movie showing in your market, though, and it's not going to be because of any nefarious conspiracy. It's going to be because the film just honestly is not performing as well as many people thought it would. The other new movie that came out this week was Greta. Greta is just another, to me, looking like another generic horror film. Apparently, it's got good performances, but a really bad script. I have no real, I have really no need to see this movie, desire to see it, but it is a horror film. It's a thriller, so if you like thrillers, you might like it. Made $4.9 million. Probably was made for next to nothing, so who knows what this film is going to end up making by the end of its run. But 4.5 on an opening weekend, especially when next weekend is going to be Captain Marvel, and you're still going to have a lot of other people seeing things like How to Train Your Dragon or Alita Battle Angel or Madea. This movie is just not going to be a big box office maker. Now, getting into Captain Marvel. There's been this huge thing that the media has been doing lately, this huge spin that the media has been putting on all this, talking about these so-called pre-sale tickets. So as you see, Screen Rant says, Captain Marvel IMAX pre-sales are tracking ahead of Wonder Woman and Thor 3. Now, in their minds, in the media's minds, they're trying to spin this. And you know what's interesting to me is that they claim to be news sites, they claim to be unbiased, and yet just from the titles alone and just the way that they're talking about this movie, they are shilling for this movie. What they're saying is that, look, the pre-sales are tracking, and that means that this film is going to do great. Instead of them saying, hey, we don't know how much money this movie is going to make because pre-sales only tell us a part of the picture. Yet they still keep on pushing articles like this with the IMAX, and then also too with China. Oh my God, Captain Marvel, China opening tracking on par with Civil War. The question then is asked, where do they get these opening tracking numbers? Well, let's go into it. Marvel Studios' Captain Marvel is currently tracking to open on par with Captain America Civil War in China. The Marvel Cinematic Universe's first female-led film is already picking up great buzz from early critical reviews because obviously we know that's going to happen because they're going to want to defend this film to its no other. It'll just be a matter of days before general audiences get a chance to see the movie for itself. However, what we see here is Marvel isn't heavily staggering the rollout for Captain Marvel with every major territory except Japan, so it's going to be opening up March 8th except for in Japan. Set to launch the film next weekend. This includes China, which continues to become one of the most important markets for blockbusters to hit. And the excitement is reportedly quite high. According to the Chinese box office tracker, Gavin Feng, Captain Marvel's early pre-sale ticket numbers put the track on film to earn 75 to 85 million in China. However, these pre-sales are actually said to be on par with Captain America Civil War, which launched to over 90 million in China in 2016. So as you can see here, it's not quite up to the Civil War numbers, but also these are just talking about pre-sale tickets. Now, let me just go off and say, this is how I'm going to end the video, is Pre-sales are only part of the equation. What do we mean by pre-sales? So if you were to go to Fandango right now, or if you were to go to your local theater's website, you will see movie showtimes available for Captain Marvel because it's a big release from Disney. It's an MCU release, and so therefore they already have certain showtimes well in advance, like months sometimes in advance, already planned and already set at a particular theater in order for them to be able to try and sell tickets. The reason why they do this is twofold. One, they want to know how much buzz there is around their movie. If they see that a lot of people are buying pre-sales in the first 24 hours and continuously all the way up until the release of the movie, that tells them, oh, this movie has a lot of good buzz around it. People are buying the tickets. They're interested. They're buying tickets every single day. So this tells us that, oh, we'll probably have a pretty good release. And so what they do is they say, what other movies have had similar trackings in the pre-sales? Let us now compare ourselves to those numbers that, to the actual box office numbers, to the official opening weekend numbers that those films had. So that's one thing, to track the overall excitement for a film, but also to be able to compare it to those other films' actual box office numbers opening weekend and say, okay, we can expect to make this much. The reason why this is a false statement, the reason why this is essentially fool's gold when it comes to box office tracking, is because the pre-sale tickets do not tell the entire story. Here are the facts. Most people, and I speak just from my own experience working at a box office, so I know this, most people, when they go to see a movie, will buy their ticket on the same day that they go to see the movie. Meaning that those numbers, those people are not being accounted for in these pre-sale numbers. So the pre-sale numbers are only people going on Fandango and Atom Tickets. Basically, companies that are releasing their sales, releasing the numbers to the studios, to the news media, saying, hey, this is the rate. This is how it compares to other films, and so go ahead and take with that what you will. So what they end up doing is they end up saying, okay, so it's on par with this film, and so therefore we're going to assume that it's going to open to the same number. The reason why you can't do that is because even though a movie might be doing well in pre-sales, it does not mean that people are actually going to show up on the day at the box office to go and see the movie. And that is the number that is the big question mark. That is the number that I think is going to ultimately either sink or live up to or even exceed the expectations of many people in this box office shill media. Because if people don't show up on the day, if people decide to stay home, if people aren't buying the pre-sales but also are just saying, I'm going to stay home on March 8th, March 9th, March 10th, and just not go see this movie at all, they can't account for that. The pre-sales are only telling them, oh, there are people buying tickets beforehand. There are people reserving their tickets beforehand. And this is only really a good indicator of Thursday premieres because that's when most people are going to pre-buy their tickets because they know that there's only going to be a certain number of theaters, a certain number of showtimes for a premiering movie compared to the weekend when everyone knows, oh, there's going to be a crap ton of shows, a crap ton of showtimes, and I don't have to worry about the movie selling out nearly as much. And so when you look to these articles, anytime that you see them saying the pre-sales, the pre-sales, the pre-sales, it's fool's gold. The biggest example, the greatest example of that fool's gold mentality that we have is Solo: A Star Wars Story. Don't forget, they were saying the same things about Solo. They were saying, look at the pre-sales. The pre-sales are doing great. The pre-sales are fantastic. The pre-sales are doing insanely well, on par with some gigantic blockbuster releases. That's why in their early box office tracking, they had Solo making between upwards of $130 to $160 million. That film only made about $85 million on the actual weekend, and then over the 3-day weekend, it barely made $100 million. So it made $30 to $60 million less than what they expected. Why is that the case? Because you had those many people not showing up, those many people staying home. And guess what? They didn't come at all. They did not show up at all, which is why you saw a gigantic drop from week 1 to week 2, and that film petering out, not even making it to the $400 million mark. Now, do I think Captain Marvel is going to fall into that same category? Not necessarily. Again, Solo had a lot of factors going against it. Not only was the marketing just not as good as it could have been, not only was it telling a story that a lot of people just didn't want to see, it was also coming out in the shadow of The Last Jedi, which is arguably speaking, no matter what the show media wants to say, one of the most divisive Star Wars films of all time, where a huge portion of the hardcore fans do not like and reject it openly. So you have to look to that and see that that was a very special circumstance. This, though, that doesn't mean that this is not going to fail, though. This does not mean that there's not a chance that this film does something similar. You want to know why? Well, one, we already have so many articles, so many videos, so many people pointing out the words of Brie Larson, pointing out the source material, pointing out the early reactions, and saying there's obviously some kind of an agenda to this film, or at the very least, they are trying to push an agenda and attach the agenda to the film as it's being released. So that's turning off a lot of people already. I already know of thousands of people already, just based on the videos, reactions, on tweets, social media, etc., etc., who are already planning to not see this movie, who would have already otherwise have seen an MCU film. That is going to cut into the numbers. The question is going to be how much? How much of the show up on the same day ticket sales are going to be affected? Because pre-sales only tell you a part of the story. You also got to keep into account who shows up on the day. And that's the number that I personally think, again, this is just speculation on my part, and this could very well be wrong. I think that enough people are going to stay home this weekend to not see this movie. And I think that when you see that happen, you're ultimately going to have a movie that comes in well under expectations, well underperforms, and maybe barely breaks even, makes a small profit. And the reason why I still think this is going to make a profit is because generic MCU fans, generic film goers who don't pay attention to this are the ones who are going to end up ultimately going to see this regardless of anything, because all they see is Marvel, and all they hear is about, oh, it ties into Endgame, and that's what they're going to see. So all you can do, if you want to try and reach the word out there, is say, hey, look at what the star has said. Look at what the directors have said. Look at all of these different reactions going on and try and say, maybe this is a movie that you can skip. And also keep this in mind that the Russo brothers themselves have made it clear that Endgame is going to be obviously connected to Captain Marvel to a point, being that the character is going to be in Endgame, but it is not going to be reliant on Endgame, or rather, it's not going to be reliant on Captain Marvel. You can skip this movie. You can just look at spoilers if you want. You can just look at the plot synopsis, and you will be able to still enjoy Endgame just as much as anyone else. So if that is the reason why you yourself might be holding back, is like, I don't really know what to do, don't worry about it. The Russo brothers have said in interviews that she is not going to be the ultimate end of this movie, and there's also plenty of rumors going around that there are two cuts of Endgame, one with a lot of her and one with not a lot of her. And based on these reactions, based on what I think is going to happen at the box office, which is, again, my last prediction was 90 million opening weekend, 550 total lifetime gross. Could be a lot less than that. Could potentially be more than that. I think the overall range would be 80 to 120 million opening. I think that makes sense to me, historically speaking, and also a 450 to 650 million worldwide gross, again, based purely on history alone. But guys, what are y'all's thoughts about this? Seriously, we need to make it very clear to everyone that pre-sales don't always mean success. Solo had some really great pre-sales, but that was only a part of the story. We need to understand, we need to be able to figure out, and we need to be able to tell people that pre-sales, they can tell you half of an account. But people who show up on the day is an entirely different story. We don't know how that's going to work out. We don't know who's going to show up for that. And that, to me, is going to be the biggest story of them all. And guys, as we get closer to this weekend, cannot wait to actually crunch the numbers. I cannot wait to actually have numbers, because guess what? You cannot predict anything. You cannot actually say what a movie is going to make until you realistically have hard numbers. And that accounts not just for pre-sales, but for also people showing up on the day as well. Go see Alita Battle Angel if you can, if it's available in your market. And if not, hey, staying at home, spending some time with your family, doing something else will still be a better use of your time. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, smash that like button, give us a thumbs up, give us a subscribe here at the Geeks and Gamers channel. Go check me out over on the Odin's Movie Blog channel. I have pre-made videos for today, tomorrow, Tuesday and Wednesday, because I'm going out of town, so you're not going to see a lot of me on this channel other than right now. And then I'm also not going to have my live streams like I normally do on my own channel. But don't worry, I have videos set to premiere, so you'll be able to interact with people in the community as the video is going live. Go give it some support. Go drop some likes, because they're scheduled, and because they're scheduled to premiere, you can actually go to the page and set a reminder already, because you know that YouTube probably won't notify you. So go do that. It's going to mean a lot to me, especially since I'm not going to be able to reach out a whole lot on Twitter or on YouTube, because I will be busy spending time with Freya, the hounds, and enjoying some vacation and some time off. Thank you guys for watching. Have a wonderful day. And as always, God bless.